Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Michelle. Today I'm going to be doing my January reading wrap up. I read 11 books in the month of January. A lot of those were romances. I read a lot of books for my video I just posted where I was reading booktubers' favorite romances from 2022, and then I read more romances on top of that. I also was reading Babel for probably 2 weeks this month. I didn't quite make my wrap up, so you'll have to wait until next month to get my final thoughts on that. But Babel is one of those books that I think is the best reading experience if you can read it a little bit slower. There's just a lot of information in there that I really found important to take time to digest and really chew on a little bit. And so at the same time I was reading a lot of romances because I always love to have more than one book going at a time. But it does mean I am already behind on my reading goal. Currently 2 books behind on my reading goal. Cute. Well, let's go in order of the things I read. So the first thing I read was the 4th book in the Magnolia Park series. I read Daisy Haites, The Great Undoing by Jessa Hastings. I actually finished this on New Year's Day. I was reading it in kind of that weird gap between Christmas and New Year's. Finished it on New Year's Day. I got sick with COVID during that gap, so I was really reading, if you remember from my December reading wrap up, reading a lot of easier books. This book follows Daisy Haites. I'm trying to it's the 4th book in a series, so I don't know how much to talk about, but Magnolia Parks and Daisy Haites are, the series is called Magnolia Parks, and then there are books called Magnolia Parks, and the Magnolia Parks books within the Magnolia Parks series are narrated by Magnolia and BJ. And then Daisy has books within the Magnolia Parks series, but they're narrated by Daisy, her brother Julian, and then her love interest Christian. And so this is the 2nd book that's from Daisy's perspective. And we are picking up kind of where the last Daisy book left off. I think we're 9 months in the future, although we get some scenes that kind of fill in the gaps of what we missed. Daisy is the daughter of this crime family. Her brother is the head of the crime family because both her parents were killed when she was pretty young, and so her brother became a guardian to her, but also is still her brother, obviously. And she is really torn. So her brother Julian runs this crime family and she loves Julian so much. Julian and Daisy's relationship, their sibling relationship, is my favorite part of this whole series. But she also does not want to live a life of crime, but it's also all she's ever known. And so she's kind of torn between these 2 worlds. She has 3 love interests, I think, at least, that we are exploring throughout this novel. We have Christian, who is one of the POV narrator characters, who is just a London high society boy. We have Tiller, who's a police officer. And then we have Romeo, who was her childhood love. And we're getting to see her torn between all of these boys and also torn between her 2 lives. It's so good. I love this series so much. I very much think it is a series that you is not for everyone, but it is so for me. That's what I always say when I introduce it, because I love it so much, and I almost want to protect it. I don't want people who aren't gonna like it to read it, because I don't want them to hurt. I don't want them to enter into Magnolia and BJ's world and not treat it with the utmost dignity. But it is a silly series. It's very dramatic, very CW teen drama in a way. But a delight. I love it so much. And then I read a book that is actually not out yet. It doesn't come out until June, but I read it early because my editor came to me and was like, hey, if you have time to read this before, I don't know, whatever date she gave me, and you really enjoy it, we would love to get a blurb from you. Which felt very fancy. It's the first book I've ever been asked to blurb. And so I felt like a very fancy lady getting a book early to read and blurb. And I did really wind up enjoying it. It is a Southern Gothic that takes place in this small lakeside town during the summer. It's following 3 different young women, and they all have different connections to this town, and it's following them over the course of the summer. There are a lot of family secrets and a lot of kind of myths and those sorts of things around the town, and also some ghosts and some spooky things. And it was really fun and delightful. It has such an intense summery atmosphere. You really feel you are in the depths of a humid summer. I read it in January. I think it's gonna be such a good summer read, and it comes out in June. So when it comes out, you should pick it up. The next book I read was Thank You for Listening, and I listened to this one actually. I read it as an audiobook because Julia Whelan narrates it. She's the author and she's also the narrator, and she's actually a pretty popular audiobook narrator. She narrates all of Emily Henry's books, and I think she narrates a lot of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books as well. I don't know why I stumbled over that so hard. Thank You for Listening follows this audiobook narrator who kind of gets herself into a little love triangle. She has this fling with this man in Las Vegas. there's like a series of misfortunate events that lead to her having this fling with this guy in Las Vegas while she's pretending to be someone else. She like uses a fake name. She uses a southern accent. He's like some guy from like Ireland. And it was like this like just like spur of the moment thing, but she like still has feelings for him and she keeps thinking about him. So we have like him on one side, and then she gets roped into this romance audiobook project and she's co-narrating it with a male audiobook narrator, and she doesn't know exactly who he is. He has like a mysterious identity, and she's also starting to develop feelings for him and his like very hunky voice and the like very flirty text messages they're shooting back and forth. And it is really fun. It reminded me a little bit of an Emily Henry novel, just in like the personal development we get from our main character. It is a lot about her personal growth and coming to terms with things that she is like learning about herself and like how she moves forward in the future. But at the same time, we also get like some good fun romance. It is also, there's some like ridiculous situations, probably more ridiculous than we'd seen in an Emily Henry novel, and I like absolutely adored it. And then I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I read this book because everyone was talking about it. And if everyone's talking about a book, I'm gonna read it. Because I am a sucker for hype, okay? If something is super hyped up, I am gonna read it. And this book is the memoir of Jeanette McCurdy. She was a child star who was on Nickelodeon, and this book really documents that time as well as her relationship with her mother, which was like extraordinarily toxic in like every way that you could possibly imagine. There are like a ton of content warnings that you should know going into this book, but it is like a very well written celebrity memoir. It is, I don't read a ton of celebrity memoirs. Trying to think if there's any other celebrity memoirs that I read. I'm like not in it for the tea and the gossip. I know like people love that, and like I love that they love that because I want to know it. I just want to read about it. Like when Jessica Simpson's memoir came out and everyone was reading it, I was so excited to hear every little juicy secret, but I don't want to take the time to read it. But this is a book that she clearly wrote because she wanted to write a book. Like she wrote a memoir because she wanted to write a memoir, not just because she wanted to like tell her story and get a paycheck. And it is evident in the way that the writing reads. Also, one thing I didn't know going into this is it's incredibly short. Like I read this in a single evening. It's like 300 pages, but it's like, I don't know, it just reads incredibly fast. The chapters are like super, super short, and I read through it in like a few hours. Then I read The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegemund-Broka. This is a book that is about a co-writing duo. Their first book was like a bestseller. They met in grad school, were like friends. Their first book was like a bestseller, but as soon as they turned that book in, they had this huge falling out. We don't know when it's over, but we like very quickly come to find out what it's over because the story is told in two timelines. We have the timeline of them writing the first book and them writing the current book, because now they've come back together. They're staying at this beach house in Florida to write the second book, and they both have their own reasons for wanting to write the second book. A good time. I talked about it more in my romance reads. This wasn't the perfect romance for me, but I think it is a really, really solid romance if you enjoy a dual perspective, if you like something that is a little bit more like isolated and like romance central. I think this does the forced proximity trope better than like anything else I have ever seen. We don't get a ton of external character development, but I don't think everyone needs that. I know this is like a favorite romance of a lot of people. Then I read Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in a series, but I didn't read the first one. They're like interconnected standalones, very common in the indie romance world if you're familiar. This is like, I heard it described a couple times as like a horse girl romance, and I think that's 100% true. It is about this small town, and it takes place on this like big horse ranch, and we're following this woman who comes in and is a nanny for this single dad who is like very grumpy. She's like very like bubbly, happy. He's very grumpy. His son is like really cute. It is like super tropey, but like in a really good way. I say that in a way that it like incorporates a lot of tropes, and I think it does it really well. Like if the premise sounds really good to you, I think you'll enjoy it. Like it delivers on exactly what the premise offers, and it was like a really well executed version of like all of those tropes I just listed. Then I read Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. This book was one that, again, I read for that favorites video, and it is like a more dramatic romance, and it also is a romance that is, I could have told you like pretty early on that it's not going to be a romance that worked especially well for me. It reminded me a lot of Colleen Hoover or like the Addicted series. So if those books really work especially well for you, I think this book will work especially well for you. We're following this man who, it kind of like the inciting incident. The first thing that happens is this man sees his like first love on the subway as the doors are closing, and then he's like trying to reach back out to her because they fell in love when they were in college, and the relationship ended kind of like in a weird way in which he went abroad for some like I think he's like a photographer, for some opportunity related to that, and she wasn't waiting for him like she said she would be when he got back. And so we never got like full closure on this, but now they've gone on, I think it's been like 15 years, they've gone on, both of them, and lived like full lives. And so we get to see where they're at now, but we also get to go back in time and kind of see the unfurling of their college relationship and then how it fell apart. Like I said, this one didn't work super well for me because I didn't feel like it had like a super distinct central plot arc that everything related back to. Like, we spent a lot of time in their college years just like learning about how they fell in love, and that wasn't related to like the central plot of the story, which is about them in the present day. It was just not a story that worked exceptionally well for me, but I think it would work exceptionally well for people, because I know there are a lot of people who like the Addicted series is like one of their favorite series, who love a Colleen Hoover novel. It just wasn't what I'm looking for in a romance. And then a book that did work for me exceptionally well, better than I thought it would, we have the Ali Hazelwood book, Love on the Brain. This is her 2022 release. It is a classic Ali Hazelwood novel. It is about a very, very tiny girl and a very, very large man. That trope does not bother me. I know it bothers some people that that's all Ali Hazelwood does, but like, I get it. And it is about this neuroscientist. The girl is coming to Houston to work with NASA on this project that is going to help NASA develop better helmets to like support the brains of their astronauts. And the co-lead on this project is Levi, this man that she went to grad school with, and they were like nemesis. He hated her for some reason. She doesn't know why he hated her, but he hated her. And we get like a lot of lists of like these incidents that occurred while she was in grad school, and now they have to work together. And it is like so silly. This book is like so silly. It is so cheesy. It is so tropey, but I was like smiling on every single page. Like, I just had such a good time while I was reading it. I loved it. I loved Levi. I thought he was so great. I loved the romance that like happens between the two of them. I loved all the like the ridiculous situations they got put into. Like, I just had such a good time while I was reading this book. Like, I just was smiling the whole time. And like, I can't complain about that. So I loved it. I'm really excited to read Ali Hazelwood's next book. I just think they're like such little treats. Then I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I loved this book. I know I said I loved the last book, which I did. But this book, Part of Your World, is maybe one of my top favorite romances. Like, I would put it amongst the beach reads, not above the beach reads. Okay. No one's touching her, but amongst the Emily Henrys, like somewhere in the mix of the people we meet on vacation and book lovers. Like, that's how much I loved it, because you know, if you know me, that I love an Emily Henry novel. And this book was that good. It was that good. It is about this doctor who, she has some car trouble in this small town, and she winds up running into this guy who turns out to be the town's mayor, who also runs a bed and breakfast in town. And they wind up having this like one night stand, which is totally not her style, but she's kind of coming out of a super toxic relationship. She broke off this engagement with this guy. She like has this one night stand, but the one night stand very quickly evolves into something more, and she's spending a lot of time with him, and they like start to fall in love. But she's coming to his town all the time, and she's spending a lot of time with him. But she refuses to let him come to her house to like meet her parents, to meet her friends. Like, she refuses to let him into her life because she feels so firmly that he won't fit. But at the same time, she can't leave her life in the city. She's part of this like family legacy at the hospital that she's a part of. And she also loves being a doctor and helping people. And so she doesn't necessarily want to, but she also knows that he can't leave his life as the mayor of this small town. His family has always been the mayor of this small town. He's very connected to this community that's grown up in this small town. And she doesn't want to pull him out of there either. So like, she doesn't understand how their lives would fit together, so she's kind of unwilling to enter into a longer term relationship with him. And so it is like this, I think there's like a real conflict here that feels very solid. I feel like sometimes the like conflict of like what keeps our love interests apart in a romance can feel a little flimsy. This felt like very real. I was like, how are they gonna go past this? Because both of them need to be in very different places, and how are they going to combine their lives if they want to enter into like a longer term, serious, more committed relationship, if they need to be in these two different worlds? It was so good. I loved it. I loved the small town vibes. I loved the heroine's journey to like discover herself and to like regain her autonomy after being in this toxic relationship, and kind of how she interacted with her toxic ex. It was just like so good. I loved it so, so much. And then next book I read was Painted Scars by Neva Altaj. I don't know how to say the author's name. This is a mafia romance that I read based on like one quote in a book talk. And it is like a super short book. It's only like 240 pages. And I read it in like a couple hours. It did what it needed to do. I don't remember very many details about it. The quote that did pull me in, I don't remember the exact quote, but essentially this woman had like a history in which she was like violently attacked, and so she gets like really anxious when there are men taller than her in the room, and so it's about how this guy like forces everyone to sit down when she walks in the room. And I was like, deal, sign me up. And I don't know, it was cute. It did what it needed to do. I have no complaints. And then finally, the last thing I read in January was Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borrison. This book was like everywhere around Christmas time because it does take place on a Christmas tree farm, but I think it is like a book that you could read any time of year. It's not so Christmassy where it feels like weird to read it in January. It is about this woman who owns a Christmas tree farm, which has been like her lifelong dream. She finally opened it last winter, but she's coming into some financial troubles, and so she winds up entering the social media contest. But to make her chances better of winning the social media contest, she does like a little lie. And the little lie is that she opened this Christmas tree farm with her boyfriend. And she doesn't have a boyfriend, and so she has to fake date her best friend in order to like validate the fact that she opened this farm with her boyfriend. But she's had feelings for her best friend for like years. And so it's like a little awkward there. But also the whole town is like not in on their fake dating. But as soon as they start dating, the whole town is like, oh my gosh, we knew you guys should have gotten together. And so there's very quickly and like, oh, I don't know, it's just like really cute and cozy. I listened to the audiobook of this one too while I was like cleaning. I like did a mix. I read this a little bit too. I read some, audiobook some. It was a mixture. But it was like really cute and cozy and fun. And he's like the best guy friend is like so cute and fun. And we get to learn a little bit about their history. And it was just like a perfect sweet little light, delightful little romance. I really, really liked it. And that was everything I read in the month of January. We've already started February off to a good start. I have already finished a book in February. I finished Babel, but we're not going to talk about it, even though I want to because it's one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. I cannot believe that R.F. Kuang like has all of that in her mind. Like, how does her brain fit inside of her head? Anyway, we're not here to talk about that, but I'm sure I will be reading like some other exciting reads in February. So, and like, if nothing else, I know I'm going to film a monthly wrap-ups video. I may film no other videos. I hope I do, but I might not. But I will be back at the end of February, beginning of March, because I don't believe you should film a wrap-up video until the month is actually over. I will be back in the first week of March with my February wrap-up video, and I hope you're here too. Subscribe if you want to be here. Leave a comment with the favorite book you read in January, and like this video. You know, do all the things that you need to do. Okay, great. I will talk to you next time. Have a good one. Bye.